welcome. I'm Gina Tabrizi, licensed marriage and family therapist, and Ask Gina. You can look me up on all social media under that name. So I love to have these little conversations with you. I think it's so great to be able to look stuff up and get information on the internet to help yourself to heal and to grow and to change. I know therapy can kind of be an intimidating thing for some people, and I hope this helps you to see that it's actually very user-friendly and very easy once you get in the habit of talking to someone and having someone listening to you. I think it's a very nurturing way to take care of yourself. And the reason I mention that is because today I want to talk about trauma thriving. Trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder is like all over the internet, social media, on TV, with all of the many things that our world is suffering with right now. We talk about trauma now like it's second nature and no big deal. When I first came into the field 30 years ago, nobody would even talk about trauma or touch trauma. They certainly didn't want to talk about sexual abuse or physical abuse, domestic violence. These were words that it was so secretive and so hidden that people were really gravely suffering and struggling to find the help and support they needed. I want you to know that people that experience trauma are about 80% more likely to go into addiction as a form of coping or create or cause that coping to happen, because they have to find a way to numb and deal with all these feelings. And so if you're suffering from that, you likely have some traumatic issues and events in your background. I personally think we all have. If we're breathing and walking on the planet, at some point we've experienced some kind of trauma. It could be a loss, it could be a catastrophic event, it could be things such as specifically domestic violence or sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and things of that nature. So I want to kind of allow you to understand that why people are talking about trauma is because trauma has this lasting effect. If when you're little you were bullied in school or someone said you were stupid, our brain works as it's developing to take this information and integrate it into ourselves. So if you heard over and over again, you're stupid and you're worthless, your mind had to make sense of it. Well, as a child growing up, the way that you make sense of it is to say, I must be stupid and worthless. Even if there's no evidence of such a thing, it doesn't matter. The adults in your life and the caregivers in your life, or your teacher or your pastor or even your friends, when they spoke to you in these ways, you assumed if it's somebody who cares about me, they must be speaking the truth. This is one of the difficulties for trauma survivors. People who now understand they have a trauma and have now identified these very specific traumas, now struggle in their life, always surviving the trauma, but moving into healing and wellness, which I call trauma thriving. I want this decade and this time and this generation to be the generation that doesn't walk around calling themselves trauma survivors, that says they're thrivers. And I don't care if you attach trauma to it or not, but to have that understanding that I understand what's happened to me. I know that it changed my personality, and not living with, and now I have to live with and accept it. This is absolutely true. When you come to understand that you've been sexually abused or you've been bullied, and you now as an adult see, wow, it caused me to go into addiction or to choose really unhealthy relationships for myself. I chose that horrible person to live in my marriage who treated me exactly like my dad, who was so abusive. And now I've identified all these patterns I keep repeating because of these traumatic events in my life. That is magnificent. That is the work that happens, and most of that work with support in therapy for people or doing a lot of self-exploration. But then what happens is they go, okay, I need to forgive, I need to accept. I've seen clients for years get stuck in that stage. They can't forgive and they can't accept, and they keep repeating the traumas over and over again by choosing people in their life to treat them the very same way. Or you traumatize yourself by constantly replaying the negative messages of self-doubt and self-loathing that you were given as a child, as a pre-adolescent, as an adult. Whenever these traumas occurred, you're reactivating and constantly re-traumatizing yourself by not loving yourself, by not talking to yourself in a way that's loving, kind, and caring. And so what happens is you now know I'm a trauma survivor, and most of the symptoms that are really intense around trauma, we call these triggers. Like if I'm around someone that smells like my uncle that molested me, I freak out, I break out in a sweat. That's a trigger. Or being in the home where you were abused, or around the people that abused you, or people that resemble them, or just going back to a neighborhood that was unsafe, or having a conversation with your boss that reminds you of your old boss who was abusive. See, those things are called triggers. And what happens as we're surviving is initially everybody avoids the triggers, and that's one way of keeping them safe. And then ultimately they learn how to accept and deal with the triggers as they're happening. But I want you to grow beyond that. Trauma thriving means I now intently am going to focus on self-love. I'm going to take and understand all of those things that happened in my past, how they are activated and triggering me in the present, and I'm going to start loving myself through it. I'm not just going to go, I know this is a trigger, I'm okay, I can accept it, this isn't happening right now, this is in my past. That is very healthy. Those are great therapeutic tools. I've taught them to all my own clients. I then want you to step up your game and then say, I am fantastic. I am fabulous. Nothing is happening to me right now because I'm right where I need to be. I trust the process. I trust myself. I trust my own intuition. I trust my heart. I trust my higher power. I know I have everything that I need right now to get through anything and everything that I am being faced with. Now, if you hear that language, that's the language of winning. That's the language of thriving. It is also the language of resourcing yourself, taking all that you have inside of you and believing truly 100% you have everything you need to heal. I no longer need to be told by anyone else how to heal, what to heal. I no longer need to be questioned about how I'm doing it because I fully trust myself to move past all of these things and begin to thrive. I know for me, I came out of a very abusive relationship in my young 20s. And initially, it caused severe codependency in me. I would look to everything and everyone to validate how I was feeling about myself. I needed you to tell me I was okay, that I was a good person, that I had a good head on my shoulders, because I left that relationship feeling stupid, ugly, worthless, and no one was ever going to love me again, and really desperate to get that love. And I sought the love in all of the wrong places, and I allowed people to use me and to take advantage of me, and I didn't even know it was happening. So as I went into my own exploration and my own therapy, support groups, I did a lot of mindfulness. I've done a lot of yoga, meditating, writing, journaling, fearless inner work, which is what you all need to do. You can't just go to therapy and a therapist like myself and think that hour is going to fix everything. It's the work you do outside that hour that is the foundation of someone who's thriving, not just surviving. It's taking what you're learning and what you're taught and saying, I can do this, I will do this, I will grow past the situation. For me, once I started to identify the codependency and the negative patterns of behavior that I had learned and the horrible ways I was speaking to myself, it was a constant challenge to change that inner dialogue. And I'm not going to tell you it changed overnight, but what I'm going to tell you is that I fearlessly attacked that dialogue and I rebuked it. I was constantly going, stop saying that to yourself. It's not okay to tell yourself you're ugly, you're stupid, you're whatever negative things you say to yourself. You're worthless, you're not enough, you're never going to get it. This is never going to work out. I had to constantly stop myself and put a pause. It's like a big red fat stop button that I would hit in my head. The hardest part next for me to learn how to be a trauma thriver was to add something positive. I could stop the negative belief, I could stop the negative thought and kind of sit there in silence, but then to tell myself, you are beautiful, you are wonderful, you are kind, you are an amazing person, you've got everything you need, that was much harder. So I had to start very, very small. I remember one time in therapy being told, look in the mirror and tell yourself you love yourself. Well, back then in my 20s, I couldn't do it. I just wanted to flip off my therapist and look in the mirror and flip off myself. I just did not have that ability. But I learned over time, okay, I can't do that, but I can say to myself, you did all right, kid, or you're doing great, or you're doing the best that you can. And hey, be patient with yourself, or hey, don't be so hard on yourself. So as we're talking today, and as you're getting a sense of what my idea is around trauma surviving versus that and trauma thriving, is start practicing and listening to how often you tell yourself horrible things that keep you stuck in your past and entrenched in patterns of behavior that you learned while you were a child or you were a young adult that was being abused. Now, is it something that just changes overnight? Absolutely not, like I told you. So one of the things you've got to do is you've got to discover, what are these behaviors that I keep repeating? What is the thing that I learned during my trauma about myself that I keep telling myself? Did I learn that I was stupid? Did I learn that I was fat? Did I learn that I was ugly? Did I tell myself that it's my fault? And that is the core and the key for all trauma survivors, is that at some point they take personal accountability for the violation that has happened to them. And you need to understand something. I don't care if you're a child, you're an adult. If something happened to you and someone was violent towards you, was cruel towards you, betrayed you, there's nothing you did to make that happen. Trust me. You're not perfect. You may not have been a perfect partner. You may have been at the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah, fill in the blanks with all of that. But the reality is, you did not cause another human being to act inhumanely towards you. That was a choice that they made. When someone violates your rights, betrays you, or abuses you in some way, that is a choice they make no matter what. You see, if they don't like you and they're no longer in love with you, or they're angry with you, they have a different choice to make. They can tell you, I'm angry and I need to leave because I'm scared of my own behavior. But the abuser crosses that line and hurts you because they're out of control. I need you to understand, it's not your fault. I don't care if you were arguing with them, if they asked you to do things and you repeatedly kept not doing that, it's still not your fault if someone attacks you, belittles you, betrays you, physically harms you in some way. Please get that into your psyche, okay? Because that's the difference between the survivor and the thriver. I know it's not my fault that you spoke down to me. I know it's not my fault that you betrayed me. I know it's not my fault that you raped me. And you get that in your soul. And once you get it in your soul, you say, if this is not my fault, then why am I beating myself up about it? I don't want to beat myself up about it. I'm going to stop beating myself up about it. I'm going to take a different stance and a different perspective. Starting today, I'm going to love myself through the process. That is the thriving. I see it. I understand it. It's not my fault. I'm willing to change my bad behavior. I'm willing to look at what I did wrong, but I'm not going to keep beating myself up because of it. So start right there. That is the work to unhinge you from being just a survivor and starting to thrive and saying, I know it's not my fault. I did the very best that I could with what I had. Maya Angelou often had said this, and she would say, when you know better, you do better. So if you know better now, you can do better now. Don't keep beating yourself up about what you didn't do when you were 20 or 15 or 10 or 5. All right? Starting from today, say, I know better, I can do better. I can love myself through this process. I can be kind. Talk to yourself as the parent that you always wanted. If you didn't have that loving, nurturing, kind parent, and either parent or one of your parents, then say to yourself, I'm going to love myself like I'm the mother or the father to myself that I always wanted. I'm going to tell myself I'm a good person, I'm kind, I'm loving, I'm creative, I'm capable, I can do whatever is put in front of me. I can manage whatever's happening, and I don't need to belittle myself anymore. I don't need to shame myself anymore. Everyone is going to come back with this and say, it's easier said than done. It is easier said than done because I've done it, and I'm still doing it, and I will continue to do it every day because I deserve that healing And I know you deserve that healing. So I'm saying to you, anything that's worth doing is worth doing well. So loving yourself is worth doing, and it's worth doing well. And yes, it takes your effort every single day. And why wouldn't you make the effort to love yourself every day? Why would you just pick and choose, I'm going to love myself today and hate myself for the next 5 weeks? That's the difference between the survivor and the thriver. So I want you, starting today, to say, I am willing to become a thriver, and I'm going to do that by loving myself. And how I start loving myself is speaking to myself with words of kindness. I'm going to become that parent to myself that I always wanted. And trust me, as you do that every day, you will watch huge transformations in your life and the ability to release and recover from your past and stop living in it. So I'm so happy that you joined me today. I hope that you found this helpful, that you continue to look up all of my resources on the internet under Ask Gina or Gina to Breezy. I thank you so much, and I wish that all of you continue to thrive.